We do have the Circa contests underway. You can sign up for those contests for this upcoming football season, the 2023 campaign. Survivor, $8 million guaranteed, Millions, $6 million guaranteed, a total of $14 million combined in the Circa Football Contests. And when you look at the Week 1 slate, let's start Survivor first before we get into the millions. Which game jumps out to you as the one that you'd want to identify for Circa Survivor, where you can only pick one team to win just straight up through that week, but you can't use them later on this season? What kind of jumps out to you looking at the Week 1 slate?
I think there's two games that jump right out to me immediately. It's Minnesota against Tampa, which I don't think Tampa will be very good with their quarterback situation. Tampa on the road, Baker Mayfield in Minnesota. Not that I love Minnesota defensively. New defensive coordinator, but that one. And I think what Vinny said to me, which is the most fascinating one, which I think will get a lot of cards in their favor, Baltimore against Houston, Baltimore playing home. I think you want to try to take a home team. I think last year San Francisco on the road in Chicago busted a lot of tickets. I think you have to be very careful about taking the road team in some of these situations. I think the other thing you have to do on Survivor is go with coaches that are really good preparing their team for opening day. Andy Reid, for example, really a good coach opening day, right? He has his team ready to play. Mike Vrabel, not such a good coach opening day. Loses to the Giants and Arizona, both at home. Both at home. So I think you got to be really careful about, how this works. I think the Rams, when you look at them, I think the Seattle will be a play on Survivor because the Rams are traditionally not a fast starting team because they don't practice a lot, right?
Yep.
Same thing with Cincinnati. If you want to go on a limb and take a chance on something, take Cleveland against Cincinnati.
Ooh.
Because Cincy, not because you think Cleveland's going to be great, but because you think Cincy's going to start slow. They went overtime 2 years ago to beat Minnesota, got fortunate in that game, and last year got the doors blown off of them. So, I think you got to be really careful.
It's interesting that you talk about these teams that are really good to start because Baltimore always jumps to mind for me as like a team that starts really fast.
Wait.
John Harbaugh gets his guys prepared. I mean, the game that always stands out to me is the year that Lamar Jackson ended up winning MVP, 2019. They go down to Miami, and they beat the Dolphins 59-10 Week 1.
Right.
And that was when everyone's like, holy crap, Lamar got even better from his rookie season. And then they were kind of off and running, going 14-2 that year. And then last year, they were a pretty popular pick in Survivor as well, and they beat the Jets 24-9. So, like, the Ravens tend to always be ready to start the season.
Pete Carroll's 2 for 2. He's won two games. Todd Bowles, which would worry me about taking Minnesota against Tampa. Todd Bowles has won 2 openers in a row. Matt LaFleur, not a very good opening day coach. I mean, really not. I mean, when you go back and look at it, it has struggled, and they're going into Chicago, your team, your MVP. So, I think you got to really play that. San Francisco into Pittsburgh, I'd stay away because of that. Tennessee goes to New Orleans. Now, I just read online during the break, John Gruden's down there in New Orleans helping them get acquainted with Derek Carr. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Especially considering, all the things that have gone on. So they're trying to speed up the process with what they do. So I think it's really kind of, you have to look at preparation of the team in terms of training camp. How much are they willing to work at it? Like, for example, Philly. Philly has been fortunate the last 2 years opening day, of being – I mean, last year Detroit was a back-and-forth game. Remember that one?
Yep.
And so I think you got to be really careful about, okay, they're a good team, so they're going to play good. No, sometimes good teams play better in the second half of the season. Remember, the last 2 years in a row, Cincinnati's 5-4 to their bye week. And then they never lose another game.
Yeah, it feels like the Bengals kind of take a little bit of time to get going, but then once they get going, they look like a really damn good team. An interesting note, though, because last year's Survivor, and one of the reasons why we had that carnage in week number 1 is I believe there was 10 home underdogs. Like, there was just a lot of road favorites, and a lot of people don't like to pick road teams in Survivor because you never know. Like, it's an interesting dynamic of going on the road. This year it's a little bit more palatable. We have 10 teams who are favored at home, but last year, 10 road favorites. You just knew going in that, wow, this is going to be a bloodbath. I went with Philly last year, which through the first half I was cruising. I was like, hey, man, this is kicking my feet up. This Survivor thing is easy. And then all of a sudden Detroit started to make that rally, and it got a little sweaty, but luckily the Eagles were able to hang on. But I know a lot of people last year got eliminated because of the Colts tying the Texans, the Bears beating the 49ers a year ago. And then obviously the Seahawks beating the Broncos Monday Night Football. A lot of carnage last season in Survivor. What do you make of the Commanders? They're 6-point favorites hosting the Cardinals, who we talked about. The rebuild is on in the desert. Would you roll the dice with Sam Howell, even though we've only seen him play one time?
Well, we'll see him a little bit in the preseason. I think it's a play against Arizona, not a play for Washington.
Yep.
And it's a play for the way Washington played defense last year. Who's going to, Colt McCoy, is he going to stay healthy? This offensive line for Arizona isn't any good. I think Arizona is going to take a lot of teams' Survivor pick when they play against them. Because I can't see Arizona covering their over total. I think, that's the thing. Now, Washington, surprisingly, and I've written about this, is their over total is low. I think, they're 7.5?
Like 6.5 in some places.
6.5, that's right. So, you're taking a 6.5 book for a 4.5 team, right? There's not a lot of margin there.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I would play that. I think, to me, the Cardinals are just not a good enough team in any area. And even though you may make the case that Jonathan Gannon understands how to play Washington because he was in Philly, but this is Washington with Bieniemy. So a lot of this has got to come from your scouting in the preseason, what you see of this offense. And typically we don't see a lot. We don't get a lot of looks.
And this is also Jonathan Gannon without Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and all those guys that they have on the defensive line. It's like those guys will make you look good. I will say this, though.
If he plays like he did in Philly, without those guys you just mentioned, Sam Howell will have a hell of an opening day. He will, because in Jonathan Gannon's scheme, there's a lot of throws you can make. And they're not hard throws. They're not, oh, my God, he's playing two trap on this side. He's playing something else over here. Oh, no, no. It's fair. It's really kind of simple. I don't want to discredit high school, but it's very high schoolish. So I would say that I would not count Sam Howell not playing well.
So you're saying that you're going to get your Sam Howell MVP ticket, early momentum in the season?
No, I don't go that way. I like to have proof before making a play. But I will say this, if he doesn't turn it over, he gets a chance. But remember last year, how bad everybody thought Pittsburgh was going to be, right? Go back and watch the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game. Since he turns it over 5 times in the game, opening day, and Pittsburgh hangs on for the win, that got people out in Survivor too.
Yep, that was one of the ones that people thought was conventional. It's like, a home team that's laying a touchdown, but it's that division game. We always say, those division games are tricky, man. That's my only rule in Survivor. I have one rule, and it just pertains to week 1. No division games, no circumstance would I ever take one of those because they're just too close. They're too much of toss-ups. Any lines that jump out to you for the millions, which is 5 picks against the spread each week there? The one I know that jumps out to me is I think I might take the points with LA. The Rams are at 5.5. That would be an unpopular play. I think a lot of pools.
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch it. The one that jumps out to me is, again, I would take Cleveland and the points as a home dog because it's not about Cleveland. I think it's really about Zach Taylor getting his team ready. I would take New Orleans against Vrabel because I'm not sure if Vrabel's team will be ready opening day. To me, it's always that. Now, Vrabel's lost 2 home games, in opening day. So I'm leaning towards what the past indicated, not necessarily who this team is currently.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.